Have you ever gone to bed at night, exhausted, but with your mind racing as if it were impossible to switch off? Every thought multiplies, every detail of the day repeats itself incessantly, and the silence seems even louder. This phenomenon has a name, and neuroscience has a lot to say about it. Today, you'll understand why your brain insists on overthinking and what really happens inside it when rest becomes a mental battle. Our brains were created to solve problems, not to remain silent. For thousands of years, thinking, "what if?" was a matter of survival. This part of thinking comes mainly from the prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning, planning, and anticipating risks. But the world has changed. Today, most of the threats we face are not physical, but mental. Emails, comparisons, insecurities. Even so, the brain reacts to them as if it still needs to fight or flee. Therefore, overthinking is an old attempt to solve new problems. The brain continues to search for solutions even when there is nothing left to solve. Neuroscience shows that excessive thinking activates the same circuitry as chronic worry. When you get caught up in repetitive thoughts, your brain releases cortisol, the stress hormone. This substance keeps your body in a state of alertness, and alertness prevents rest. At the same time, the anterior cingulate cortex, responsible for monitoring errors and internal conflicts, becomes hyperactive. It's as if the brain is looking for something wrong, even when everything is fine. And the more you try not to think about it, the more you think about it. This is because the command "don't think about it" activates the same neural circuit that created the original thought. The result? You get stuck in a mental loop, a spiral of thought that seems impossible to silence. When you try to relax, your brain activates the default mode network. This network kicks in when you're not focused on a task and you start imagining, remembering, and planning. This network is essential for creativity and self-awareness. However, in people who tend to overthink, it becomes hyperactive. Instead of producing ideas, it starts to produce worries. This happens because the brain tries to fill the mental void with predictions, and predictions are often scenarios of fear. The brain believes it is protecting you, but in fact, it is keeping you awake. It is the survival instinct trying to solve threats that do not exist. Over time, overthinking ceases to be a reaction and becomes a neural pattern. Every time you enter this cycle, you strengthen the connections between the areas involved, the amygdala, which processes emotions such as fear and guilt, and the prefrontal cortex, which analyzes and plans. These two regions begin to communicate excessively, and that's when the mind loses the balance between feeling and reasoning. You find yourself replaying conversations, creating scenarios that never happened, predicting failures that may not even exist. It's the brain trying to protect itself from something it's creating itself. But the good news is that neural patterns are malleable, and what has been learned can be unlearned. The key is to teach the brain to trust the present. The practice of mindfulness activates the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, an area that reduces the emotional reactivity of the amygdala, which is the fundamental structure for emotions, learning, and danger detection. Over time, this rebalances the alert system and reduces the release of cortisol. You can start with something simple. Observe your thoughts without fighting them. Breathe deeply and repeat, "I am not my thoughts, just their observer." Take short breaks during the day without a stimuli. No cell phone, no noise. These moments of silence teach the brain not to constantly search for threats, And little by little, rest ceases to be a challenge and becomes natural again. Overthinking does not mean there is something wrong with you. It means your brain worries because it wants to keep you safe. But safety and peace are not the same thing. The first is instinctive. The second is learned. So the next time your mind starts racing, remember, you don't have to keep up with it. Breathe. Your brain was made to think, but also to rest. If this content has added value to your life in any way, please help us by leaving your like and subscription so you can show us that we are doing a good job. See you soon.